The last time I was in France, I got engaged. True story. That was in 2018. It was in December. And guys, I'm back. I'm back in France. I love a good podcast background, like for my videos on YouTube. And I thought this one was pretty solid. I thought this was a pretty good option. Yes, that is the Eiffel Tower. Like, that's it. That's in the Tour Eiffel. When I came here in 2018, I was skiing in the Alps. That's where I was proposed to. I was a nervous ball of anxiety. It was like another life, you know? I look back and I'm like, is that even real? Was that even me? But this time, 8 years later, Leah, she is grateful for the journey. And I never would have thought that the next time I would be in France would be here talking to you. So on the train down here today, I was taking some notes and just like brainstorming and whatnot, and I had my headphones in, and this song came on by Natasha Bedingfield, Unwritten. I know, if you're a millennial, you're like, wow, that was my ringtone. I know, it was my ringtone too. That and Corinne Bailey Rae, Girl Put Your Records On. There's a line in that song that says, we've been conditioned to not make mistakes, and I can't live that way, is what she says. So relevant. I heard that, and I hadn't heard that song probably for 8 years either. Probably the last time I was going to France. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly a feeling that I know very well. To be conditioned to not make a mistake because you are afraid of being the fool, of looking like the idiot, and of honestly like making your life a little harder. I know I was conditioned to not make mistakes. Not like my parents sat down and said you can't make mistakes. That's not how this goes. It's not like a parental thing. It's like a societal thing. And it's like, well, I don't want people to know that I've made a mistake. Why does this person playing the guitar think we all want to hear the guitar? Okay, we're not at the base of the Eiffel Tower anymore. It's incredibly distracting filming there. So we've moved to a balcony. So all of this looking backwards and trying to process a big moment in my life and in your life, I'm guessing as well. And, they say that hindsight is 2020. And as I've been thinking about that, I did not have a lot of 2020 perfect vision in my 20s. That has definitely come in my 30s. Something that I think I thought I had in my 20s. I was a pretty confident 20-something, and I thought life went a certain way and operated a certain way. Now in my 30s, with this 30-30 vision, if you will, looking back, I'm like, wow, Leah did what she could, but she had limited perspective simply because of age and life experiences. And also just like maturation, like that it just happens organically over time. And you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And you look back and you're like, I didn't know. And so this concept of 30-30 vision, I think, is actually quite fascinating because the further away I move from having ended the engagement, the more I'm able to look at it as this tiny blip on the screen instead of this big old mountain, which it really felt like it was at the time, because it was. It's a huge deal. It was definitely an explosion in my life. In one of the blog posts that I wrote about this early on in 2020, I said I actually wrote a haiku because people process in haikus maybe sometimes. And the idea was like you will slowly over time have this irritant that will continue to grow, or you can do the bigger thing, take the shoe off and remove the pebble. And I was definitely in that time needing to remove this pebble, but I didn't quite know what the pebble actually was until I was able to pinpoint it to the relationship that I was in and how it wasn't serving me and how I wasn't able to even be a great partner because I wasn't also able to be a full healthy version of myself. And that ending of a relationship was huge. Of course it was. And it has changed the way I see a lot of other things. But the further that I get away from it, I'm able to put it into this perspective and learn from it in a way that continues to help me move forward and make better decisions moving forward. But it was something that I had to go through, and it had to be a big deal. It had to become a mountain to then later, over time, after therapy and discussions and just growing up, to be able to look back and be like, it's not a mountain anymore. I heard it said, I think it was on The View. I'm not a The View watcher. Okay. I was a bit more when Barbara Walters was on it. May she rest in peace. But I heard one of the anchors say that she thinks it should be illegal for people to get married in their 20s because you think you know so much and you think you're really convinced. I was, that I understood the way that life worked. And now in my 30s, I'm like, ah, little girl, you did not know. You knew a lot. And that learning and that confidence has helped me greatly in my 30s. But it wasn't a reality. It was a perceived notion of understanding self and the world and love and what I wanted. That now looking back, I'm like, wow, I was about to make a really big decision that I feel like my brain wasn't even like fully developed enough to make. It was developed enough to make, but I wasn't in a spot to be able to make that in such a way that I think would have been a good idea. I honestly don't think I thought there were real life consequences when I was in my 20s. It was like you could play with fire in a way and not get burned. And now in my 30s, I mean, even just like going out, like you go out one night a week, and I mean, I'm out of commission for like at least 2 days. There's none of this like bounce back immediately thing. But the same goes as my body is aging. Like, so too do I notice that there are repercussions for other things. Maybe they've always been there and I just haven't noticed them because I've been a bit invincible feeling. But these things, I'm starting to notice them a bit more. I genuinely, looking back, I think I had an idea of what the impact of ending an engagement was going to be, but I didn't think of all of the consequences that would come after that. So, yes, there are consequences, but they're also mistakes, they're learning moments. They're things that do get you to a point of 30-30 vision, and then 40-40, and then 50-50, and so on vision. But I think to think that 20-20 vision in your 20s is perfect vision is a bit of a fantasy. I just don't think it's true. I don't think in your 20s you have this grapple on who you are and what the impacts of your decisions actually are. Looking back now, I can see, oh wow, I can see all of these trickle effects from that one decision and leaving my job in Qatar. I'm like, oh wow, there are consequences and there are changes that come with that. Or even like starting my master's program. That has led me on a series of chain reactions that are directly linked to my decision. And I know this seems a bit perhaps obvious, but it's now hitting me for the first time. And I'm like, wow, decisions that I make have lasting impacts. You can't go back, you can't change it. You have to live with it and sit in it and accept it and have peace. Sure, you can regret it a little bit. Brene Brown regrets things. So I feel like if she gives us the green light to regret things, I feel like it must be semi-healthy to do that. But they do have impacts. And thankfully, for me, in regards to the engagement, there were a lot of bad things that happened afterwards, losing friends, not being able to focus at work for quite some time. And then on top of that, the pandemic and the timing of everything. But imagine if I had stayed in it. And this is where younger Leah did have pretty solid 20-20 or 30-20 vision, 30-30 vision, because she was able to look into the future and say, this is going to be ending in divorce. And if that is the decision that I choose to stay in this and then likely end up getting divorced, look at all of the repercussions of that decision. And ultimately, I guess wisdom is getting in that time machine and weighing your options and doing what you think is the best thing. And I'm not saying you shouldn't get married in your 20s or make big decisions in your 20s. I made huge decisions in my 20s. They weren't all great, and I have to live with that. But that's also a part of living and a part of trying out you as an adult for the first time. And I think a lot of weight is put on 20 somethings to have so much figured out. And then I kind of went through it thinking this is how life is. Honestly, kind of cush. And I had a great job, salary, friends, community. And then as I started to see even what the toll of living the way that I was taking on my mental health and my physical body and needing to have a change, I then had to transition out of that life into a very different one. And now looking back, I'm like, was that actually everything that I thought it was? And wanting to go back to it because I tend to just remember the good things. And that is a place that I think needs to be avoided. You can go back, you can revisit the thing, according to my therapist. That's been a very helpful practice to go back and look at the situation for what it was and then accept it because you can't change it and know that you made the best decision that you could have with the information that you had at that time. I think the idea of self-preservation is relevant here, and the idea that, skiing, we can take skiing again for an example. When I was super young and went skiing with my family in Colorado, I was like flying down the slopes and just had reckless abandon for my body and my life. And I was just did what I needed to do to get down the mountain, enjoying the thrill, and then doing it again and again and again because each time you come out unscathed. And then at once, years had passed and I went back to skiing, I was trepidatious. I was aware that, okay, if I go super fast down here, I could like break my leg. I could be a quadriplegic. There are going to be possibly greater consequences, but also I'm aware of those consequences and I'm wanting to live honestly in a more like wise space where I'm not just living with like reckless abandon. And I feel like I have that perspective now in my 30s. Looking back in my 20s, I feel like I was like racing down the slopes and nothing really bad happened. And I made decisions and, went on with it and just kept going on the slope, kept going on the slope. And now looking back, I'm like, wow, I'm actually, to continue this analogy, like, my knees hurt a little, or, there's like a crick in my neck. And I'm like, okay, I did things then and I didn't have a consequence then, but I'm feeling it now in ways that influence the way that I make decisions. And I think that's super interesting because it means I feel like I have this split path, like a Robert Frost, two roads diverge in a yellow wood. One of them is to live more trepidatiously and cautiously and living kind of bubble boy life. And then the other side to live in this, Red Bull high diver scenario where you just keep jumping off the board and trust your training and you keep doing the thing and you can just pay for it later and you keep offsetting that time when you're going to be feeling it, if you will. I find myself now in this kind of middle ground where I'm aware of the risks and I'm also aware of the like rush. And I'm trying to calculate which way I want to lean in dating, in my job, in travel, in how I spend my money. I'm more aware of that ebb and that flow and how life is so freaking fragile. Like I'm leaning up against this like bar right here and it could like collapse and could like fall through and I could die. It's dramatic. But that would be on the, bubble boy side of, okay, well, I'm not going to go out on the balcony. Having 30/30 vision, I don't want it to mean that I live my life in fear or I live my life trying to avoid hardship or difficulties across the board and you pick the topic. And that's honestly a tight rope to walk. And it's been an interesting journey to even come to this realization that I'm entering this new phase of life is what it feels like. and being aware of what I want my future to look like and trying to make decisions now that I know can set me up for success in the future. Like ending my engagement, I believe was setting myself up for success in the future because it saved me from a lot of hardship, but then I also had a lot of hardship in the interim anyway. But that's life, isn't it? It's messy, and I think it has taken me to get into my 30s to realize that this is not a clean ride and there's no escaping unscathed. And it's about learning to sit in that muddy water and looking around and being content, but also still hungry. It's a very fine balancing act. It's a humbling realization because I'm like, dang it, I'm human. Life happens. You've got one shot. And how did you live it? How did you love yourself and the people around you in the most authentic way? And I think it's hard to know what authenticity is the younger you are, mainly in that 20s area. For me, I'll speak for myself. I thought I was being authentic, but I was really just a sheep person, just following this pack. And once I was able to stand up and be like, hang on, I'm not a sheep. I'm a Wolverine. What the hell is a Wolverine? I don't even know. And then living the Wolverine life, I still look back and I kind of miss the sheep pack sometimes because I'm like, things were a bit simpler there. But that's not what I've been called to do. But that means that life is going to be messy and turbulent, and you're going to leave a little bit of a trail behind you because that's just what happens. And I think what I've learned is if you can try to leave a trail that has love and grace and hope and authenticity sprinkled in, then you're doing okay. So this actually concludes season 1 of Disengage the podcast. Can you believe it? I'm so grateful to have been on this initial journey with you, but don't worry, we're not going anywhere. We're coming back after a short little European travel interlude, and we're going to have a whole new season for you, diving into more specific elements of what it means to self-advocate, because we don't want to live our lives disengaged. We want to be engaged. We want to be plugged in to ourselves. And that is the best way to live an engaged life. And it's been a complete joy to be here with you for season 1. I'm very, very excited for season 2 and the changes and change of scenery for sure, change of backdrop that's coming ahead. If you like and subscribe, that really helps us on our end with getting this podcast out there. And it also means you will not miss our first episode of season 2. This is Disengaged, and I'm Leah Harding. This podcast was produced by the Anthology Group.